Hi everyone, Jen George here, and today I'm speaking with Ben Nowlan from London. Ben, thanks for coming on, and who the hell are you?
I try to figure that out most days. Um, oh, Thank you, Jen. Obviously, we've been here before, coming over from Australia to take on a new project. Last time we spoke, I was with Sherpa, one of the founders and CEO there at the time. Sherpa being the last mile delivery company back at home that I'm still involved with. But now over here in the UK, doing something very similar for a company called On the Dot, which is by CitySprint, one of the largest same-day carriers. So we're essentially helping them do what I've done before, reinvigorate the last mile delivery proposition for retailers. And it's quite exciting because the UK is maturing as a retail market. It's very competitive. There's a lot of people. There's a lot to do here, and being that I've had some learnings from my past, it makes it fun for me now. So that's what I'm doing here right now. I've been on the ground for 5 weeks, adjusting to UK life.
The cold or the time change?
Well, it was cold when we landed, and now it's warming up, and it's so crazy how quickly you acclimatise, because I think it was 18 degrees on the weekend and it was hot. I know that you're saying it's like 19 at home and it's like cray. You've got a jumper on, which is hilarious. I think what's the temperature now here? I think it's probably like 11.
Well, this is a jumper as well. This is by levels from Martin, who's at Style Atlas. So this is very cool. You're missing out.
I'm sorry I'm missing out.
Yeah, I'll send you the link after. On the Dot, what's the story? How have they gotten started? What are you doing to expand it? What's the challenge from day one?
Yeah, so the main reason why I decided to come over was the size of the opportunity is that, UK, 65 million people. I think it's a $65 billion retail market. Australia's is 17. Fighting around in the $17 billion market with, selling last mile delivery to retailers in Australia was fun. But you can imagine how much funner it is when you've got a market that's 4 or 5 times the size. CitySprint is effectively the largest same-day carrier in the world. They've got a network of full-time drivers of around 5,000. They've been doing it for 20 years, and they've been on a what you'd call a digitized journey to be, the new breed of companies, like a Sherpa, like a Quicker, for the last 2 years. And On the Dot is a product of that. So it's a retail-facing delivery product using the same resources and network of CitySprint, but purely just rebranded it to sell to retailers. I mean, imagine your Qantas and your Jetstar, I guess, to some capacity, although one isn't meant to be the cheap brand, but you get my point. So I'm part of the team leading that out, getting these conversations going, building out this, this value proposition to help retailers, send deliveries to their customer. I think we all know this value prop. We've all heard it before, particularly where we're from. And so now it's just about doing it in a way that we can scale and, with the resources, which, we don't have to really raise capital. We can go at it quite aggressively, and that's what's exciting. It's it. So,
and this is a shift from, Sherpa, right? Getting it off the ground, day one, couldn't even rub 2 50-cent pieces together, right?
That's right.
That experience going from that, obviously scaling, growing, fantastic, but starting day one again, but with cash in the bank to play with.
Well, it's funny. It's a good question, and one of the...
You didn't last long with your hair.
It was annoying me. One of the things that we, the grass is never greener. We, with a startup, you're trying to raise capital, which is hard for anyone. And look, that is one luxury that we definitely don't have here. But on the flip side of that, when you're starting fresh, you get to start everything from fresh. And you get to have that DNA of pivoting and innovating as you go, and which is what, that pure lean model, which allows startups to disrupt industries. one of the hardest challenges for any existing business, which we all know, and I'm sure we've pitched towards, is an incumbent always has the inertia of changing into a more nimble and lean business, dealing with people, dealing with, old technology, dealing with old processes. And so whilst on one level we've got a pretty free stream of investment coming at us without having to work too hard for it, we've also got to turn the ship, and that for me is a new challenge. I've never really been through that, and so having to change manage through that, having to sort of lift and shift old technology, that's different. So we don't get to be as quick and nimble as if we started from fresh.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I'm sure that comes with its own challenges. But from your experience, what sort of tools and tech are you using, like segments, or are there any quick tricks that you've kind of been able to bring that are giving you those quick wins in the startup journey?
The one thing we did well at Sherpa and still do well is sell one thing and sell it well. And I think if you look at all of the, great startups, they just do one thing really well. And as you start to unpack, I guess a 20-year-old company, it's working out what is that clear value proposition that we can continue to articulate and sell and build up that speed, and find that one target market that we know that we can, nail effectively. And I think that would be my learnings definitely from Sherpa, and bringing that here and saying, look, we've got one product, we're going to sell it, and we're going to wait till we do that really well, and then we'll roll out the next product. And I think that is something I've brought with me. But that leads itself into understanding, how we built Sherpa as a marketplace, understanding that the effect of density economics and the network effect. And it's not just about selling, it's about understanding, what you can fulfill with the drivers, and then also what retail model you have, hub and spoke, and how you work with your retailers as partners, not just a supplier-client relationship. This all seems rather buzzwordy, but in fact, if you put it all together in a nice Venn diagram, it's an effective growth model. And that is the, I guess that's the value I bring to this company, and why they, wanted me to join them. And so that's stuff I'm working on. Sorry?
Kidnapped you off the island.
They did. And, the funny part about it, as all great deals, it started in a pub in Surrey Hills. So here I am in Shoreditch, London, all the way from, I think, the pub, the Keg and Brew on Favreau Street is where it all started.
Fantastic. And
yes,
as a business as a startup founder who's typically worked in Australia, now going to the UK, what are the learnings that you've had from somebody who's wanting to expand into the UK?
Yeah, another really good question. I'm glad you prepared these.
We'll pretend that we prepared.
Well, I'm glad you've thought through it now, because it's been some of my own reflections along the way. Every founder has this concept of how they're going to expand, and we're going to drop it in all these countries, and reverse engineer will be in 5 countries in 5 years. And I look back on this, even with Sherpa, even though I was a little bit smarter than I was than my previous business, is, to be fair, how ridiculous that was. Mm-hmm. It's not until you really get into a country, unless you've got a software which is a fairly asset-light product and can scale without infrastructure, but which has slightly less challenges. When you're actually here, it really is a different story to understand, the cultural nuances, what are the pressure points and the levers that happen within this market that make it separate? What is the real capital that's needed? And so as I'm here, although culturally UK is very similar, retailers all operate the same. We all consume similar ways. So for my vertical, those are all really the same. But really, really reflecting on how ill thought out international expansion was for me as a founder 4 or 5 years ago. Even though you pitch it really well and convincingly to investors, has been one of my bigger reflections. And this has definitely made me stronger about how I would think about my next venture, about what are the things I would think of from day one to make sure I'm international ready? And I know some of the VCs in Australia, like Blackbird, that are always talking about international day one, but it's more than just a mindset. And I think you really need to feel it and live it to get what that means.
Yeah. And what if you were a startup founder today, whether it's expanding the UK to Australia or Australia to the UK or anywhere else in the world, the US, what would you do to ensure that you are global from day one?
Yeah, so if it's software, it's international ready from day one. All the tech, language, currency, all those things are a given. And then I would identify, and I'm doing this with one of my investments at the moment, which is Token, which we referred to in our previous chat. Identify a market that matches what you are probably based in, and see if you can grow that from day one as well. Look for partnerships. And I think you're doing something very similar with Temi, which I admire. How you're building up partnerships across the Indian Ocean. Is it the Indian? Yeah. You've got that international footprint and find a way to do it that's not so capital intensive, but if your product and your platform and your value prop can speak cross-culturally, think about that literally from day one and maybe spend some time in another market so you're actually nurturing both markets equally.
Yeah.
And I think you're a good example of that, and I really admire that.
Well, thank you. But this isn't about me. This is about you. So, you've got some challenges, I'm sure, trying to move a big ship. How do you then scale it? How do you make it move quickly? How do you have those tough conversations with, I'm sure, lots of different departments?
Yeah, I would admittedly be not the most tactful. I try every day, but when you've been the boss, or you've been in your own environment, right, for the last 4 years, 3 and a bit years, whatever it is, actually longer if I think about my business before that, it's hard to sort of shift about being more tactful, change management, best practice. How do you bring someone on the journey? Because there's also a lot of fear that comes, when you start to digitize a business, it potentially comes with a reduction in human resource, to use a euphemism. And I'm not saying that's what's happening, but that's an eventual fate for any business that tries to reduce their operational costs and cost to serve by becoming more digitally productive or digitally effective. And so, yeah, look, it's what I'm doing right now is I'm looking at focusing on the customer, all the customer touch points across that full user journey, and I'm saying essentially no more human touch points. Let's digitize it all, and that's from how we onboard a customer to how we nurture them as a customer, to how we continue to talk to them and serve them, and so all of that has been traditionally in this particular business done by humans, and as my experience with Sherpa is we did it actually with Alltech. We onboarding 36,000 customers with technology is actually quite a significant milestone, as I've now realised as I've spent time in different countries looking at similar businesses. So I'm literally doing those same things and getting people to think the same way, and it's all about thinking and moving fast.
Yeah. And what do you think the impact to the industry is going to be? Such a substantial business like CitySprint building a two-sided marketplace. What do you think the scale is going to be in the first 12, 24 months?
Yeah, so CitySprint has proven to be fairly effective at acquisitions. So they acquired, I think, 6 companies last year, and we have a few lined up this year with a fairly decent capital backing. It actually puts a fairly exciting roadmap. But what I'll go back to is in 1998, there was actually a company that tried to do, I think they were called DMS. We don't need to care for the name, but it was what this guy was trying to do from New York, was do a global roll up of essentially all of the last mile and same day carriers, and it didn't pull off. But we're coming to a time in terms of global retail logistics with the way Amazon and Alibaba are owning the supply chain and the cost ineffectiveness for some retailers to do it themselves. So when you've got a lot of people trying to solve the same problem, you've got Lala Move, Postmates, QuickUp, Brisk, Gopher, On the Dot, Sherpa, Zoom to You, Go people, probably the world leaders in all of their space. There's consolidation's going to happen. It's coming. And so what I see for the next 12 to 24 months is not only do we have our own organic growth plans, but we're going to go on an international expansion with an acquisition plan that I find exciting. And I think that's naturally going to shift about what we see in terms of that retail logistics landscape.
That sounds very exciting. And how do you think from a tech point of view, are you going to either combine platforms to have one global platform or keep local ones intact, or, what's the strategy behind that?
Yeah, so that's actually one of the bigger pieces of work here has always been about, and coming back to that opportunity that guy tried to do in 1998 was do exactly that. And so this team has been working on a platform that can globalize and absorb all of these companies and put them on our tech. And they've been working on this for a while. It's not as simple as just building a nice platform like what we did at Sherpa. There's a bit more complexity in terms of how we do that. And that's actually exactly what we're doing. We go and acquire a company and roll them in onto the platform, give a consistent experience to the retailer. And that's now, we're at that point now where we're going to really start to speed up that plan.
Yeah.
One platform, one big company.
What does the team look like to grow something like that?
Yeah, so I'm in the process of, and again, thank you, Jen, for helping me out. I'm in the process of hiring a few people, sales, marketing, over the course of the year, probably a few more in the same area, sales and marketing. We've got a really, really strong tech team. We've got about 45 people, machine learning, through to product, mobile, front end, all the usual places. But we're putting our investment in, we're backing ourselves, into this properly. We have the resources. Once we start to speed up our onboarding of customers, we've got the tech there clearly to do it. We want to lead. Everyone uses machine learning, but again, another buzzword. But we have 21 years of data that Sherpa didn't have, that any UK, actually nearly no one in the world has that level of data in the same day space. And that's something that a lot of companies would be begging for, because with data you can build better predictive. Really, that's what feeds AI and machine learning. So we have that advantage over most people, actually nearly all people, and that's why we've got a fairly strong machine learning team looking at how we drive down unit economics, which means we give more effective prices to the customers and the retailers. So that will be our long-term goal, is how good can we make our tech that we make stuff cheaper.
Yeah, fantastic. And you touched on unit economics. How important are they to two-sided marketplaces, and how do you see yourself tracking this and ensuring that you keep this core to your model, whereas I'm sure from a business that's been around for such a long time probably doesn't have this as their mantelpiece? Yeah,
it's so true. I remember, not only with you, but and sorry, I never responded to your questions on unit economics. I apologise for that. Clearly had some other stuff going on, moving to another country. But I remember 3 years ago banging on about unit economics. I remember my first presentation at Fishburners talking about LTV over CAC. It's so funny to see where I'm at personally and where different businesses and industries are at 3 to 4 years later. Because when you saw and I'll sort of loop this question back around to your comment on CitySprint, you saw when the on-demand space exploded, like no one was thinking unit economics, because you had all of these ridiculous businesses pumping full of cash, FOMO investment from London and Silicon Valley, but none of the business models ever made sense. These home service models and food delivery models where they're rolling around with heated food and delivery within 16 minutes. And just when you look at it, they were losing $10 delivery. I mean, and I've also got my existing concerns about the food delivery space, which I obviously won't be talk to too much here. But even the food delivery space, unit economics don't stack up that well. Now here, you're right, an old business that hasn't really had to think too much about it. It's just been, let's get lots of drivers and lots of businesses. And I'm not saying that type of vernacular or rhetoric doesn't exist now, but you can see that it hasn't, and we're in this space, and that is definitely a focus now. Everything we talk about is, do we want to onboard this customer? Does it make sense to serve them? Will it ever be profitable? And it comes back to, London's a far more competitive market than Australia was when we started. We had a bit of a free ride, a blue ocean when we started Sherpa. And what you find here is unfortunately a bit of a cost game, a pricing game. And so you've got businesses, which I won't name, that obviously got decent funding going out there, are doing reductions in prices. But you only know that unit economics are going to come into play at some point. So I'm a big fan of playing the long game. Investors can only pump so much cash into businesses that are losing money at a unit level. So if I fit that into the narrative of On the Dot and what we're doing here at CitySprint, let's build a big business. Let's build a sustainable one. And so that unit economic conversation happens every day.
Yeah, fantastic. And what are the top liners that you are watching while you are trying to start with those first couple of people coming on, or are you going into the depths of everything, looking at the churn, your life?
Everything, and that excites me, because I've come over here with my fist pumping to go, hey, I've done it before. Let me. What's that?
Trust me.
yeah, trust me. I know. Never trust a guy that says trust me. But they've been really open. The team's amazing. We've got really great people here, and everyone's just like, yeah, let's do it. So we're reinvigorating our BI. We're reinvigorating how we think and report and grow. And yes, churn. Yes, I have a sales dashboard that now includes LTV over CAC. Yeah. We got to think about how we onboard 10,000 customers a week and do that without any human contact. And so we're digitizing the onboarding process and building that into our acquisition funnel, those sorts of metrics. So we absolutely, and every customer is also going to have even their own dashboard that can see how detailed we are in measuring their performance. So yes, yeah, we're doing. It's exciting because everyone is on the same page, and that's and we got the resources to do it.
That's fantastic. And as a leader in a new market, how are you ensuring that you're constantly staying up the curve, across the new things or the trends in the new market? You haven't had the luxury of 4, 5, 10 years in this market yet.
Another point I've been reflecting on, because I've often thought, I've been fortunate because I've been able to do business from Australia into other markets, but by the nature of obviously running my own businesses, I've been fortunate enough to go to other markets. I've had advisors and investors from other markets. So that's naturally given me a little bit more of a global view. Yeah. And so, but one thing that I've reflected from being here is we as Australians need to we're an island, we need to give ourselves some more credit. Inherently, I believe, by the nature of being an isolated continent at the bottom of the world, we inherently look out. I believe we do, or at least I do. And so when I come here, what's so funny is that I do see a little bit of let me put this lightly, not so much this company, just that this is some pick up some local narrative, which is operating a bit more much in a thought vacuum. Even though it's a huge market, particularly my space, 65 billion, it's that, well, hang on, no, the rest of the world actually doing some pretty cool stuff here. And if I haven't lost thought of your original question, what I'm basically saying, we've been lucky because I've been able to come here and I've already, my inherent nature to go about stuff is, well, who else is doing this work? Who else is doing that? And I think because Australia's so small, we naturally go, well, what's the US doing? What's the UK doing? What's happening in Asia? And then we try to sort of figure ourselves out around that. But because these markets get so big and enveloping in their own right, I'm seeing a lot of people, I'm like, well, no, this business already exists.
Yeah.
Go have a look at the US. There's 3 of these business models that are doing really well, and it's actually a surprising sort of undertone here that I think gives us an advantage.
Fantastic. And Shoreditch, that's the startup space. It's where everybody hangs out. It's a high density of tech businesses who have offices in Shoreditch. There's Google, where they have that free coffee space or desk space that startups can use, and people queue out the door at 5 a.m. in the morning to use it. So there's a real hustle mentality. What's Shoreditch like? Where are the co-working spaces that you think people should go to or just hang out at?
Yeah, I'll tell you, Shoreditch is awesome. And as a vegan, and if you're a vegan, Shoreditch is vegan food. It really is. I could not have landed in a better space. It's such a cool place. So much healthy food, really cool cafes, restaurants, actually good coffee. Not all of the UK has great coffee, which I'm sure we're all aware of. We're very spoiled at home. But the cool cafes around here are either run by Aussies or Kiwis.
Yeah. What are some of the ones that people should go to?
Ozone. There's one in the train place called Ninkum Soup, which is cool. Old Street train station. And Rizo over here, just off the edge of Scrutton Street. Shoreditch is just a really vibing place. It's famously the triangle from Old Street and around. But there's so many agencies, cool startups, and there's like 5 WeWorks in Shoreditch alone. So when you'd ask me if you go from, well, technically Bishopgate, right through to Old Street, I think there's 2 next to each other in Shoreditch, and there's one a bit further out. So, you ask about working spaces, they've got no shortage of WeWorks.
Yeah.
So that's an easy one. And there's a bunch of there's actually a couple of, which we need more of in Australia, in Sydney at least, is these private clubs. So Shoreditch Club, is that what it's called? And then there's one across the road called the Curtain Club.
Yeah.
And these are great. So they're sort of paid memberships to these places that have a gym, a working space. I think some have meeting rooms, but they're like exclusive members. A bit like what that one in Potts Point's trying to do.
Yeah.
But 10 times better. Is they got the cocktail bar up the top and the pool. The country club out in UK country that you can also get access to. So I've seen all of that. I actually went there just the other day to see one. So that's kind of cool. So if you're coming over here to do business, sit up in Shoreditch, happily show some people around.
Awesome. People will totally hit you up about it now. But what other networking groups are you a part of?
Well, funny you say this. So it has become apparent, unless I'm being ignorant, that I'm not seeing a dedicated network for Australians. Not that we need any other reason to connect, but after meeting some of your connections through the like-minded bitches drinking wine, yes, awesome bunch of people. Was there's some really good founders, Australian founders over here. So we're actually trying to form our own group.
That's awesome.
So yeah, which you may be invited.
You could invite me because is there an interview?
There is. You got to have a tell a joke when you're interviewed. But, yeah.
Ben,
what was that?
Have you met Ben? Is that a joke?
Oh, well, yes, it could be.
I don't know.
No, so I'm there's similar to Australia. There's the co-working spaces are running their own, the WeWork and a couple of the decent startups. I had a Deliveroo event the other day, running their own sort of groups. There's obviously similar meetup and groups that I'm exploring. I've obviously been connecting through the LMBDW group, and that's awesome. And then trying to get. I really would love to get a bunch of founders here talking more regularly, and there seems to be a need for it. So for the 10 people who are all like, yes, we need to do this. Not so much even around drinking or anything. It's literally, how do we meet up and chat and have a forum where we can share? So we're going to start that. And if anyone listening and watching this right now wants to be a part of that, reach out to me.
Stalk him.
Stalk me.
That's awesome. Well, I've asked you this before, so you're going to know what you're going to say, I'm sure. But I ask everyone, as you know, if you could have a superpower, what would it be?
I'm trying to think what I said last time.
Well, it might be different this time.
Well, no, this is why I'm reflecting. I wish that I wish that I could see into the future.
Yeah, that's nice.
So I can be more predictive and manipulate the game.
Well, once you figure it out, let me know so I know what steps I'm taking to, please. Well, on that note, Ben, thank you very much. And where can people go to support you on the dot, seek you out, advice, connect for your Founders Network?
Sure. Maybe my email, ben@bennowlan.com. You can post that if you want. Jen, onthedot.com is the website if you're a retailer, if you're a business that is looking at delivery. But for me personally, just email me or hit me up on LinkedIn, and love to connect, love to meet and catch up. And I don't know if you wanted to tell everyone or when you're posting this, but it's my birthday, so I'm especially in a good mood today. So hit me up today.
Awesome, Ben. Thank you so much.